The Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, is a specialized agency of the United Nations that leads international efforts to defeat hunger. Now, their goal is to achieve food security for all and make sure that people have regular access to enough high-quality foods to lead active, healthy lives. Well, we're now joined by a Food and Agricultural Organization representative for South Africa, Dr. Francesco Pierri, from our studios in Pretoria. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Also to you, happy UN Day. But your arm of the United Nations has very, very important work. And I just wonder, on a day like today, when we celebrate the international organization, you must be thinking, I need more hours in a day to be able to complete my tasks.
Well, thank you very much for the question and affirmation. Time is a scarce resource for everybody, for the UN, for the government, for the ordinary citizens. So with the amount of labor time that we devote every day, we, as the UN, as the whole agency, we try to support not only the government, but also civil society and private sector to achieve sustainable development goals, because we do understand that the sustainable development goals is a societal exercise and not just a government exercise.
All right, so defeating hunger is becoming a big issue, particularly in a world where climate change is affecting our ability to produce food. Take us through some of the challenges that you're facing with climate change and food production.
Listen, the number of undernourished people is increasing since 2015, and this is the bad news. And we have three main drivers for having a reason of why the number is increasing. One is wars. The other one is climate change, indeed, very much indeed. And the second one, and the third one, sorry, is about the economic slowdown, turn down. Of course, climate change is quite important because climate change in this very moment is determining some changeable condition in which agricultural exercise is done. Extreme weather event, changing temperature, all these conditions do affect the way agriculture goes on, especially in Africa. I'll give you an example. Last year in South Africa, in the Free State, climate change was particularly affecting agriculture because we experienced a delay in the onset of the rainy season, with the result that the growing season was shortened. So with several results in terms of decreasing yields and decreasing productivity. So for sure, climate change is one of the biggest challenges we are facing when it comes to agriculture and food security.
So what can the world do? Particularly on our continent, where we have those other two issues, the economic issues and the conflict issues, what can we do to mitigate these three pillars that are standing in our way of being, food secure?
Well, when it comes to climate change, you have to do basically two things. On one side, since agriculture is one of the biggest contributors to greenhouse emissions, you have to reduce the contribution of agriculture to greenhouse emissions, which means basically going towards another model of agriculture which is less dependent on the chemical use of chemical inputs in the production side, in the marketing side, in the transport side, so on and so forth. On the other side, speaking always about climate change, farmers need to adapt to the changing conditions caused by climate change by, for instance, taking seeds that are tolerant to climate change, animal breeds that are tolerant to climate change. But the most important thing when it comes to climate change and agriculture, again, is to preserve the biological diversity, the biodiversity of the environment in which agriculture is done. But then you have a lot of economic challenges when it comes to food security. And we have some experiences on this. We have some lessons learned on that, which tell us that you have to address 5 conditions for successfully tackling on food security. First is political commitment, and you can measure this by seeing whether, for instance, the right to food is in the Constitution, as it is in South Africa. Second, consequent to political commitment is about sufficient budget. You have to earmark a sufficient budget to promote food security. Third is about coordination across department and also vertical coordination from the state to the province to the districts. Fifth is to adopt a territorial approach for policy making, and we salute very positively the decision of President Ramaphosa to launch the district coordination model in South Africa. And fifth, you need social dialogue, because as I said again, the fights against food insecurity is not just the government's fight. It's the fight of the government, it's the fight of the civil society, with the academic and private sector. It's a societal exercise. So, and we need to not only consult, but involve all these, what we call no-state actors, in the formulation and in the implementation of the different policies to tackle food security, which are not only agricultural policies. We're talking about, of course, agricultural policies, but also social protection policies, environmental policies, infrastructure, rural development, research and development, so on and so forth.
All right, now last week, if I remember correctly, it was World Food Day, and a frightening statistic that I found out was as much as a third of the food that's produced actually disappears, and yet there are millions of people, and children in particular, malnourished and dying of hunger even. How do we manage this? How on earth can we allow the planet to lose a third of its agricultural output?
This is a key issue, the issue of wastage of food. You have a lot of food which is lost, especially in Africa, during transport or storage. So this is a question of improving infrastructure, road conditions, storage facilities, and so on and so forth. But there is also an issue of wastage, which is inherent in the fact that the current dominant value chains are very, very big and very long. So one main systemic action to be undertaken is the shortening of value chain, is the improvement, creation or improvement of local markets that are able to supply local people with cheap, healthy food. Unfortunately, this is not the case in many places nowadays. South Africa is one of these, is one example.
All right, Dr. Pierri, we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, but thanks so much indeed for giving us your insights today, particularly in the work that you're doing at the FAO as we celebrate UN Day. Thanks so much for your time.